Barack Obama. You say, well, you just mean you don't like what he stands for. No, I hate the person. Oh, wait, you mean you just don't like his policies. No, I hate him. Now, I'm going to prove this from the Bible tonight, why I should hate Barack Obama. Why God wants me to hate Barack Obama. Why God hates Barack Obama.
This is Steven Anderson. I've talked about him before, but he's the leader of a group called the NIFB, the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church. He is about as extreme as it gets. He hates pretty much every group out there that is not white, Christian, and male. He's a hate monger through and through. Can't stand Barack Obama, can't stand the people from the Jewish community, can't stand all kinds of people. Well, he had some interesting things to say about our old buddy Kanye recently. So I wanted to take a look at his Kanye comments, as well as Kanye's comments personally, like what Kanye had to say, because they've both had some deeply disturbing things to say about the Jewish community. But before we talk about that, let me just give you a little bit of an introduction to Steven Anderson beyond what I just showed you. He's built his platform off of hating members of the LGBT community. I mean, full-blown hating them. He's even been on, like, famous TV shows to talk about this. Check this out. This is from USA Today. It's an interview he did with a USA Today reporter.
Have you always hated gay people? Is it something your father taught you, or is it something that you came to on your own?
Now, some people would hear this question and say to themselves, wow, this is a loaded question. I don't hate gay people. I just don't think they should be allowed to exist in society. They want to keep it veiled as possible, and dog whistle to the people who really do hate gay people. So let's see how Steven Anderson of the NIFB responds.
No, I haven't always. You know, I grew up in a Christian home, but it wasn't until I read the Bible cover to cover at age 17 that I discovered the truth of what the Bible really says.
So he very obviously is embracing the claim that he hates gay people. Like he wants it. He likes that. He wants to be known as the pastor who hates the gay community.
Because a lot of passages don't ever get preached from the pulpit because they're simply not popular.
I have to be honest, when I heard your sermon, it sounded like the rantings of someone who was either a hate monger or a religious zealot, and I'm wondering, which are you?
Again, another seemingly loaded question, right? Anybody else being asked these questions would want to keep it more veiled and be a little less obvious about what they believe, but not Steven Anderson.
Well, I'm a religious zealot, and, you know, I love the Bible. I love God's Word. I believe that the law of the Lord is perfect.
See, he's all about embracing hate. He loves to hate other people, and he loves for others to know that he hates them. He's a deeply disturbing person to the bottom of his black little heart. This happened not too long ago. This one is from January 5th, 2022. Check out what happened when somebody walked into his church and wasn't really familiar with the setting.
Hey, sit down. Sit down. What are you coming up here to do? You want to come take over the service? Huh? Over the service. What do you want? What?
I just want a prayer, Ed.
Get out of here.
He wanted a prayer. So in some churches, like Pentecostal churches, for example, you can go up to the front and do a prayer or whatever.
Here. Can I get a little grace?
No, you can't. No, you get out of here. Get him out of here. Drag this bozo out. Pull him out. Hey, help him out. Get him out. And you know what? Anybody wants to come up here and take over the service? We'll throw you out of here, buddy. This church is not a free-for-all. This isn't an open mic. This isn't a karaoke bar.
He's deeply hateful in everything that he says and does, obviously.
I'm the man of God here. I meet the qualifications. I run this church, and if you don't like it, then get out. This is not some church where every first-time visitor and brand-new believer and people who've never even read the Bible are going to come up and take over the service. Not happening. Okay? If you want that kind of watered-down leadership, go to some house church with your Amish buddies and sit around the coffee table with your coffee clutch. This is a New Testament church. We have a bishop.
Wow, that was an oddly vivid and specific creation that he just gave us. Okay. Has he done that specific thing before?
We have a bishop here. We have an overseer here. Like it or lump it. And if you don't like it, feel free to get up and leave the service at any time. If 50% of people walk out, I don't care. Because you know what? I'm not going to pastor a oneness cult.
Yeah, bad news for old Steven Anderson here. I think that's exactly what he's doing.
I'm not going to pastor a Pentecostal church. I'm the pastor of a Baptist church. And if you're not a Baptist, then get out.
So, needless to say, he's an angry, hateful, vengeful person who looks for opportunities to attack and demean and whatever. That's just Steven Anderson. That's who he's always been. He's a cult leader, a full-blown cult leader, an extremist. Always has been. A while back, Steven Anderson was actually banned from YouTube and a bunch of other platforms, rightfully so, just like Alex Jones. He was pulled down, and he had to set up his own website for it, basically. But he was so upset that YouTube banned him that he had some things to say about it and went completely over the top. Listen to what he said here. Oh, by the way, this is from early September 2021 when this happened.
It's too bad that this message about the love of God is struggling to find its way on YouTube.
This is not about the love of God. This is very clearly about the hate of God, but okay.
It's pretty sad when my wife has to call me before the service and say, where's the channel? I can't find it.
His YouTube channel had 125,000 subbies on it.
Because YouTube has been deleting our channel. It's not her fault. YouTube is deleting our channel. Like every week, every day. You know, meanwhile, Insane Clown Posse's channel is doing fine. Truth is hate to those who hate the truth. And right now, you know, YouTube has just banned me and just...
Here's where it gets real. You ready? Buckle up.
Deleting my channels, one after the other. You know, it's just I make a new channel, it gets deleted. I keep respawning. Every time I die, I don't have 9 lives. I just keep coming back, keep respawning.
Yeah, that's true. He keeps respawning, i.e. he keeps creating new YouTube channels. But you know how long it takes Steven Anderson to create a new YouTube channel? 20 minutes, probably at least, minimum. He has to create a new email account with Gmail. He has to set up a new YouTube channel, add a profile picture, add his name and bio and all that stuff. And then he has to upload the videos, which takes time. He has to add metadata to them and thumbnails. You know how long it takes YouTube to delete his channel? Literally half a second. They just click delete and they're done. That's it. So he's wasting hours and hours and hours of his life creating new YouTube channels for somebody to just hit the delete button on the other end. No big deal. So, you know, I say this about people that I block. There was some dude a while back that kept creating accounts on Twitter that was like, Owen is stupid, Owen is a loser, something like that. And he kept like posting like pictures of my face photoshopped into like images or something. And I just block him and move on with my life. He creates a new account, goes through the process of making a new email address, making a new account, and then photoshopping my face onto more images and posting them all over. And I just hit block again, and he does it all over again. It took me like half a second to hit the block button, and it took him 20 minutes to create a new account. Like, I care. I will just keep hitting the block button. It really does not matter to me. He thinks that he's the one winning in this situation. You're wasting hours and hours of your life that you will never get back for absolutely nothing.
They cannot stop us from preaching the Word of God. Maybe the fact that California is going up in flames right now.
Yeah, there were wildfires in California. That's what was happening at that time.
Maybe God can just go like, and maybe it can hit Mountain View, California, and torch old YouTube's headquarters, torch old Google's headquarters, right?
He is literally wishing death on people. He is literally he's praying for a fire to burn down somebody who he considers to be an enemy. That's unhinged. That is extremism, plain as day. That is unhealthy, unsafe, ridiculous. So now you should have an idea of who this guy is, how he feels about things, and why we've got to talk about him. And that brings us to our old buddy Kanye West. I promise these two subjects connect to each other, and it's going to be interesting when they do. Just bear with me through this, okay? Kanye West has been going through a serious anti-Semitic phase recently. I don't think it's a phase. It's probably not the right word. He's been getting on the anti-Semitic bandwagon, I guess you could say, in recent days. And I don't know, in many ways, he's been leading the charge against the Jewish community. It's been really ugly. It's been terrible. In fact, I've made a lot of videos about it recently. He has come out as an incredibly hateful person doing everything he can to demonize the Jewish community and hate them and turn people against them and everything else. I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into that. If you're watching this 5 years in the future, you're unfamiliar with what Kanye West had to say recently, give this clip a listen. This is an interview he did with Gavin McInnes. Check it out. Again, this is Kanye West. He's been wearing a mask for these interviews for one reason or another.
But they don't deserve to be in charge of everything because they don't.
He's talking about Jews.
Because they don't put Christ in.
Well, how do you legislate that?
They need to work for Christians. Jews should work for Christians. I'll hire a Jewish person in a second. If I knew they weren't a spy and I could look through their phone and follow them to their house and have a camera all in their living room.
You know, they're laughing, but it's really not a laughing matter, even to them. Like, they don't really consider this an amusing thing. I got the impression that they were laughing because they recognized how ridiculous this was going to sound when it finally came out. But they're dead serious with this stuff. Kanye West, Nick Fuentes, his little buddy over here on the left, they're dead serious. Kanye West thinks that there is a cabal of Jews out there pulling strings like puppet masters. I mean, it's absolutely unhinged from reality. I don't know what else to call it. This was with Gavin McInnes, right? This is like a 5-hour interview or something like that. It was really, really long. He did another 3-hour interview with Alex Jones on InfoWars, and that one was just as unhinged, at least. Check this one out.
I don't really care that much about Hitler. I love him. Seems like
you just do it as a way to like troll.
No, he seems like a cool guy. You know, it's like he it's like he had a really cool outfit and stuff, and he was a really good architect. And
so you're in love with the look of it.
And he didn't kill 6 million Jews. That's just like factually incorrect.
He did actually kill 6 million Jews. This is part of Holocaust denial, questioning how many people died in the Holocaust. I mean, when you line people up along a hole and pull that they dug themselves and pull the trigger over and over and over, everybody in an entire town, and the people that are pulling the triggers are drunk in the first place, when you're sending people through these chambers day in and day out, you lose track of how many people die. That's inevitable. So we don't have exact figures. We've had to sift through records and count through graveyards and all kinds of other stuff to try to get an idea of how many people actually died. It was roughly 6 million. That was roughly the number. But again, it's really hard to tell. When you hear people like Kanye say it wasn't 6 million, that's factually incorrect. They're trying to get a foot in the door to make claims that it didn't happen at all. They want to start out small and claim it didn't happen to the degree that is claimed publicly. And if they can convince people of that, then they can convince them that it wasn't, out of the ordinary, like Jews weren't even persecuted practically. That's kind of the idea behind the rhetorical strategy that he's employing here. So, yeah, it was about 6 million, give or take. So Kanye, needless to say, has gone full-blown, complete anti-Jewish. Like, really, really disturbing stuff. Now, here's where this connects with Steven Anderson, okay? Interestingly enough, Steven Anderson released a video, I think in 2015, about Holocaust denial. Of all things, right? This pastor decided to spread conspiracy theories about it. Listen to what he had to say here. Again, I think this is from 2015. This was either from the documentary, quote unquote, that he did, or it was like part of the promotional thing. I don't remember which. It was like 37 minutes long. I watched the whole thing the other day.
If there was no mass cremation of millions and millions of Jews, then can you really call it the Holocaust anymore?
There was. So Steven Anderson spent the previous 20 minutes trying to convince people that this didn't happen. It did. Okay, we have historical records. We have people that were there and saw this happening. It did happen. This guy just lives in a fantasy land. All of these people live in a fantasy land. Of all things to deny, it just blows my mind that people are even capable of denying something like this. But okay.
Now again, we're not saying that Jews didn't die in World War II and that Jews were not even murdered in World War II.
Again, if they can convince you that it wasn't a mass-scale campaign, then they can convince you that they practically weren't even attacked or they practically weren't even persecuted in the first place. It's nonsense. But it's part of the rhetorical strategy, and it has been since day one.
Lots of people were murdered in World War II. There were all kinds of casualties on both sides. And the thing about it is that just because people were rounded up and put in forced labor camps, that does not mean that they were systematically exterminated and cremated to the tune of 6 million. You know, keep in mind, the United States rounded up Japanese people and put them in a concentration camp, okay?
That's actually very true. Matter of fact, there's the actor on the original Star Trek who played Sulu, George Takei, was one of those Japanese people who was rounded up and put in a concentration camp in the United States. A lot of people don't know about this. They were not, like, taking them out the same way that they were in Germany. As far as I know, they weren't using them for forced labor either in the United States. Somebody can fill me in if that's incorrect. But anyways, they were jailing them, absolutely. George Takei's family owned a dry cleaning business, I believe, originally. They seized their assets, took everything from them, and put them in jail. I believe, I've listened to George Takei talk about this. If I remember correctly, I think he said his little brother was born in this internment camp in America that was for, like, set up for Japanese people. He viewed it as home. And when they released them back into the world, his little brother was sad. He left his house. He didn't know anything differently than living in the jail. It's crazy. But you know what they weren't doing? They weren't systematically exterminating them. They weren't withholding food rations. They weren't forcing labor out of them, as far as I know. And it wasn't a systematic effort to gather all Japanese people in all the world, Europe and everywhere else, and send them through these chambers to take them out permanently. It was a completely different situation. And he knows that. He knows it was completely different. He wants to blur the line between what was happening with the Jewish community in Germany in the 1930s and 40s and what was happening to the Japanese community in America in the 30s and 40s. He wants to make it look exactly the same to, like, what's his goal here? Your guess is as good as mine. To rehabilitate Hitler's image, I guess. If that's not his goal, that's the end result.
But honestly, these camps, Auschwitz, Treblinka, and others, were probably forced labor camps, not death camps or...
They were definitely forced labor camps. Also, when people entered these camps, specifically Auschwitz, I know a lot about this one because I've read books about people that were there. In fact, I've read books by people that were there. When you arrive at Auschwitz, if you were of working age, say between the age of like 18 and 45 maybe, and if you were in good health, you didn't have any, if you had decent teeth and all that other stuff, they would put you to work. You would stand in front of the administrators and they would pick left or right. If it was to the left, you got to go to the forced labor section of the camp. If it was to the right, you got to go to the crematorium. In another section of this Holocaust denialism thing that Steven Anderson produced, he had commissary, like a dollar or a type of dollar, a currency that he found from one of these camps or whatever, and claimed that Jews were paid for their work. That's completely absurd. I have no idea where he found that currency. I don't even know if it's actually from one of these camps. But Jews were not paid for their work. They were given rations every day. Well, most days. And it was absolutely not enough for them to survive. They looked like skin and bones when they were rescued by Americans or Russians or whatever else. But you know what? The whole goal by Steven Anderson seems to be confusing people and convincing them that the whole thing was a lie, disgustingly.
You see, the Germans wanted the Jews working to fuel their war machine. I mean, they had drafted every man that was able-bodied into their military, especially toward the end. I mean, they're drafting 16-year-olds, they're drafting 45-year-olds.
That's true, that's true. They were still running the death machine, though, even through the war. At the beginning of 1942, 25% of the Jewish people who would eventually go on to die in World War II were dead. At the end of 1942, 75% were dead. Hitler took power in 1933. Full-blown attacks and executions of the Jews started in 1937-38, and then the war was over by 1945. April 25th, 1945, I think. So 1942 was the key year where the death machine was at its height. And beyond that, they started conquering other lands like Hungary and Holland and other places like that, and shipping Jews into Auschwitz and other places. The war started going badly for them around 1944, 1945, and they started pushing forced labor heavily, but they were still definitely taking people out at these camps for sure.
Because they're just trying to get as many soldiers out there on the field, and they needed people working to make the bullets, the tanks, the equipment to keep the war machine going. And so they were using the Jews for forced labor in these camps. Actually, that makes a lot more sense when you look at the facts.
Don't you love how this is like built like a documentary? It's framed up like it's a documentary when it's complete nonsense beginning to end. Check this one out. This is another clip from Steven Anderson. Again, this connects back to Kanye West in a second. Bear with me.
Let me go back to 1933 when Hitler
Please do.
first took power and help you to understand that the goal of the Nazis, the goal of Adolf Hitler, his stated goal was that he wanted the Jews out of Germany. Now, he persecuted the Jews also.
Hitler wanted the Jews out of Germany. That was his goal. He didn't want to hurt them. Those poor guys, he just wanted them out of Germany is all. No big deal, right? Where did he get these ridiculous ideas?
He wants to make their life miserable because he wants them to leave.
He wanted to make their lives miserable. Okay, I don't feel like that is a reasonable description of what happened in World War II. He's just trying to make their lives miserable so they'd leave. That's insane.
And, I'm not saying that that's right, but he basically made their lives miserable, and he also tried to offer them incentives to emigrate somewhere else.
He offered them incentives to emigrate somewhere else? So, like, he paid them money to move to America, is what you're telling me? Is that why the trains ran straight through the Atlantic Ocean to the United States rather than, somewhere else, say in Poland, maybe, or in Germany? Weird.
Was to get them out of Germany. Now, who else had that same goal?
Okay, God, this guy, I cannot with this dude. He claims that the Zionists were the ones that were, he says the Zionists were working with Hitler in World War II, which means people who wanted Jews to go to Israel. Zionists are people who are pro-Israel, basically. So he says Zionists wanted to create the country of Israel, and they were working, like Jewish people were working with Hitler to drive Jews to Israel. That was the whole goal of the whole thing. Oh my God, dude.
Jews to leave Germany. Well, that would be the Zionists, because the goal of the Zionists was to get the Jews to go to Palestine and to form the nation of Israel.
Yeah, nothing this guy says is based in historical fact whatsoever. He is completely full of it from beginning to end. And again, this is like a 40-minute documentary. I think it was like 37 minutes long or something. Yeah, 37 minutes and 10 seconds. That's how long it was. And it was crazy from beginning to end, straight up. Oh my God, dude. So now is the burning question. How does this relate to Kanye West? Steven Anderson has weighed in on Kanye West's recent complete meltdown. Now, as we've seen, Steven Anderson is most definitely anti-Semitic, obviously, right? I feel like there's no way to avoid that. And Kanye West is obviously anti-Semitic. Kanye also claims to be ultra-Christian, like a super giga ultra-religious wingnut, right? So you would think Steven Anderson is like a huge Kanye fan now. Listen to what he had to say about Kanye West. This is from early December 2022.
After 5 years as a so-called Christian, isn't it time for Kanye West to be able to quote one single Bible verse correctly? After 5 years of supposedly being a Christian?
This is actually pretty deep lore, but in the Alex Jones interview that Kanye West did, he wanted to read a Bible verse, and he didn't know how to quote it. So he said, I don't remember what verse it was, like 2 Corinthians 23, 5-7 is how he read it. And any Christian who's been a Christian for any period of time knows you don't say 5-7. You say verses 5 to 7. That's probably what Steven Anderson is referring to. Kanye West not knowing how to direct people to a Bible verse. That probably tipped him off. But I find the more interesting point here is that Steven Anderson watches InfoWars. Now, I've known that for a while. I've known because Steven Anderson has come out and said that he likes Alex Jones. He watches Alex Jones on a regular basis. But he watched the Kanye episode too, apparently. And the thing that upset him about that episode, not that Kanye said that he loves Hitler, not that he thinks that the Jews were not really persecuted, not any of that stuff, of course. It's that he didn't know how to direct people to a Bible verse. That was his problem with the Kanye West, Alex Jones interview.
I don't expect a 5-year-old to be soiling their pants. I expect that from a baby. Yet Kanye West soils himself on every interview. He soils himself every time he goes on TV. He pants every single time he opens his mouth.
Dude, I am so confused. Why? Why is he drawing this vivid imagery for us? I don't get it.
You know what? When you're 5 years old, it's time to grow up. But guess what? He's not 5 years old because he's not even saved. He's not even a fetus. He's 0 because he's not a child of God. He's not saved. He's a fake, false Christian.
Okay, yeah, so his big issue with Kanye West isn't that he hates the Jews, it's that he's a fake, false Christian, quote unquote.
The guy gets on an interview on the Alex Jones show for 3 hours, and there are over 3 million people tuned into this thing. He's literally speaking on a live broadcast that was listened to within a few days by 3+ million people.
Yep, that's a lot of people. So not a surprise. I mean, Alex Jones does have a lot of reach, especially when Kanye West is a guest on there.
Let alone all the different excerpts of it and clips everywhere. And Alex Jones is like, you're the host. You have the floor. Say whatever you want. I'm here to give you a platform. And for 3 hours, the idiot can't even quote a single Bible verse. Why can't he explain how to be saved?
He did quote a Bible verse. He just quoted it incorrectly, and I'm assuming that's what he's upset about. Not only that, but I guess he's also upset that he didn't talk about how to be saved. He talked about the Jews. Well, Steven Anderson's done the exact same thing. Like I said, 37 minutes and 10 seconds of nonstop Holocaust denialism from Steven Anderson. This is like his bread and butter. I'm honestly really surprised that Steven Anderson doesn't seem to be a fan of Kanye West after the things that he said.
Explain how to be saved. Why couldn't he spend 10 seconds explaining how to be saved, how to go to heaven? Because he's not saved and because he's not going to heaven. That's why. And when he says at the beginning and end of the broadcast, Jesus is king, Jesus is king. Folks, that's not a theological statement. That's the name of his album that he's trying to sell you.
That's true, actually. That is the name of his album, but I feel like that's incidental. I feel like he named the album that because he thinks that Jesus should be king, but okay.
That's the name of his album that he's trying to sell you. That's a sales pitch for his music.
Okay, Jesus, dude. Steven Anderson is absolutely nuts. Everything about the guy. I'm just really surprised that he didn't turn out to be a Kanye fan after everything Kanye did. This is right up Steven Anderson's alley. This hits all the boxes that he loves. I just don't get it. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you want to hear more stuff about Steven Anderson? Do you want to hear more stuff about Kanye? Tell me what you think about it.